Ja, welkom bij Drop or Dram, de whisky podcast, de bonusaflevering. Waar ik nog eventjes aan tafel zit met de heren van Littlemill en Rosebank distillery. Om wat tasting notes door te nemen en natuurlijk wat meer verhalen te horen van deze drie geweldige sprekers. Dus ja, blijf even hangen en dan gaan we snel terug naar de mannen.
Dit is Drop or Dram, de podcast voor whiskyliefhebbers. Van beginner tot kenner. Schenk je favoriete glas in en geniet met ons mee.
Oh, so yep. So welcome back. We can get geeky now. No, don't worry about that.
I thought it was a joke.
No. It's not a joke. I never joke. I'm very serious about podcasts.
At first time there's an advert break, and then I thought, oh, it's a bonus. Oh, it's a scene, right?
This is an
yes,
advert for
because,
spandex.
It's the spandex. So I changed not in the kilt, but in the spandex. The spandex kilt. That will be a fashion statement. Yeah. It's a lot less expensive though.
Well, I'm thinking maybe I can get there. What's it? I've got 2 hours before I'm trying to get it. For tonight.
Oh, that will be interesting. No, guys. Welcome back, Nick, Alan, and Gordon. Talking about geeky stuff, we can go geeky now. We have a huge dinner now. We can't do recordings during the dinner, but we've got some of the liquid beforehand. Very, very, very beautiful lineup. Very hard to get. Some of it you can't get anymore. But like you said before, very innovative stuff, what you do at the Loch Lomond Group. We did a previous podcast about Spearhead, taking Spearhead to the next level.
Right.
Super exciting stuff.
Yep.
Not just grain whiskey. When people go, oh, it's just a grain. Oh, it's not even 20 years old. Not boring. But with infrared cask and next level stuff. Yeah. Next level stuff. But like you said, this is next level stuff as well. Taking Littlemill in production where there's nothing more and then doing bold stuff on finishing.
Yeah. There's just more pressure. That's
just
more pressure. Yeah,
that's why the two of you are.
Absolutely. the stakes are higher, definitely. I mean, you're absolutely right. With something like Spearhead, we can do things like infrared finishing, but it's really, you're right. That's the geekery we can talk about. But actually, Spearhead is about trying to create a whiskey where we believe whiskey should be for everybody, and that's a very accessible whiskey that people can almost get into the space with. It's for Littlemill. I mean, we're talking about somebody who really knows their stuff and loves their whiskey history here as well. And I think that's what makes it special. So again, with something like this, you'll want to kind of be able to give Michael Henry a bit of creative leave, but at the same time, you just don't want to lose what made it special. So trying to hang on to that flavor profile of the past is it's just a really, really important thing we measure ourselves against. So with these as well, I mean, what we've got in front of us just now, Cask Reflections, 570 bottles globally. When that's gone, it's gone. Release number 2, I'm under pain of death from Michael not to mention what that is. But when that comes, you're probably going to have to go slightly smaller on the release numbers just because of the stock position we're in. But again, you've got some exciting things in there that are going to complement, not contradict or overpower.
And will we Littlemill and the Rosebank we're talking about, will this be just collector's items or is it just drinkable? Because that is a little bit about when people talking, oh no, it's only for collectors and so expensive and stuff, but it's made to drink.
Well, that's a really good point, and actually, I'm super keen to hear your take on this as well. But what we've tried to do with Cask Reflections is, the mantra again is this should be too good not to open. We get it. It deserves to be beautifully presented. Love the idea that people collect. I do a bit of collecting as well. But with Cask Reflections, we really wanted to give the world something that you just wouldn't feel too precious about opening and drinking with your most treasured company, basically.
Basically make the right occasion to drink it. Yes. I think that's very important. We don't want to get too deep into the romance of drinking whiskey, but I think everybody sitting here, we believe that it should be consumed, and it's the experience and enjoying it with the right company, the right time. And I think Cask Reflections really leans into that. I'm not suggesting that everybody should do that with their Vanguard range when we're going into the 47-year-old. That might be, if you've got deep pockets, then of course make the right occasion. But I think this one we're trying to make it a little bit more
The
accessible.
great thing about the whiskey that old is that it's been maturing for that end cast. Even in the bottle, it stays there forever. So it's not you have to drink it that night.
Yeah.
Depends on the bigger crowd you have. But
Well, that's it. I was in Switzerland last night, and I was speaking to guys that have clubbed together to get themselves a Rosebank. Yes, you need deep pockets to get a bottle, but they are a whiskey club, and that's what they did. So they all put in some money and able to acquire a bottle. I mean, love selling it into maybe restaurants or bars when people can go and buy a dram of it if they can't afford the big price, because
yeah, it is.
the Angels take it. If the Angels left it in the barrel, it'd be fine. We could sell it half the price. But those Scottish Angels keep on taking it, so there's just little
Greedy bastards.
little of it. So
Yeah.
it's, supply and demand. That's just
No,
the
of
way.
course. And one of my favourite stories is, forgive me for being from marketing, but we spend a lot of our time, designing beautiful packaging and trying to make it as beautiful as possible. But one of my favourite stories, it was the chap that went into the store. I forget which store, but he went in, bought the Littlemill, took the bottle out of its beautiful oak box and its display, left all that behind, took the bottle to lunch and opened it with his friends and drank it there and then. There's a little bit of me that's like, oh my goodness, I put all that time into the packaging, but whatever. But at the same time, it's great. Actually, that brings us joy to see it opened and just drunk and enjoyed. It deserves to be. It's phenomenal stuff. Just like Rosebank, it deserves to be opened and enjoyed. It'd be criminal not to.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good reason, and it's a good reason to get around with kindred spirits and open a bottle of spirit that way, because and enjoy it. That's a special moment.
And these whiskies are, as you say, history. You're drinking something that.
Don't you think that a lot of people, or collectors or so-called collectors, well, there are collectors that just do it for investment, but they're not the collectors we know. And well, if you want to do that, that's fine by me. If that's a choice for people to do so, but collecting and taking the right moment, just opening a bottle, that's a special moment by itself.
Just the sound.
That's it, isn't it?
There's a lovely story of a collector, one of the world's biggest collectors of Rosebank, lives in Falkirk. He's called, I think he's it doesn't mind me mentioning him, he's called Scott Jackson.
I'm going to look up his address after this.
Oh, he's got a good sister.
Okay, good.
And I went to visit his house.
It's on your podcast.
It is on our podcast.
Yeah, it's good.
He's got about 300 odds and some independent bottles and what. Excellent. Anyway, I took him down to Rosebank as a personal visit, and he got quite emotional because he was a young lad. He remembers Rosebank very well and stood outside the bus stop, and it meant really something to him. Loved the experience in there, and with all these bottles, he was saying, he would love to come down one night with the staff and crack open some of his bottles and pour them and give the staff some of the old stuff from the 60s and 70s.
But both Alan and
That's
I
a
are
collector.
available, by the way.
Oh,
If you want to buy something, we're free.
Yeah, of course you. That's a collector. He's doing it for love and wants to share.
Yeah, and I think so this is not to beat up on the collectors, because I think a lot of people sometimes the mindset was, I'm going to keep one, I'm going to drink one, and I'm going to use one to trade. I think depending on what price that bottle is, that can be deep pockets. But I'd still like to think there was people out there that would genuinely want to drink that liquid. I think there needs to be, again, if you can't really start collecting willy-nilly, because you could get lost. You could try all the new distilleries, the inaugural bottles, but you either find a little niche.
I even got lost with the Ian McLeod ones. I used to have some of the new things, and I got, I'll buy 3 bottles, and I got so attached to some of the bottles that I don't want to sell them. That was the first intention, No, it's mine.
but even having that mindset, whether somebody started regionally and said, right, okay, there only used to be a few whiskey distilleries in the Lowlands, let's start there and see what we can pick up and build from there. But again, as I said, it can get out of control. I think we've seen some collectors and you're like,
all of us, all of us. We've been there, all of us.
Yeah.
Just that people are, I'll trade this one. Yeah. No, I'm not. Yeah. It's mine now. No, that's it. Now it is very, very interesting to see things go and with these very, very special bottles. And like I said, I'm very privileged to taste some of these liquids tonight with you during the special dinner.
Oh yes.
Very exciting stuff coming along, but very exciting stuff from the Loch Lomond Group in general. Yeah. And Rosebank in the near future.
Yeah.
And Ian McLeod as a whole, because they still bottle as an independent bottler some great stuff. And also taking new stuff like Smoke Hat. When people think about that, that's something with a story. It's not something that has just been there.
I think once you've been an independent bottler, you'll always be an independent bottler. I think that's, and Ian McLeod, we've got quite a range of whiskies in our warehouses, maybe not quite as big as Gordon MacPhail. Independent bottler to distiller, they've still got about 40,000 left in their warehouses, but we've still got that passion to independently bottle great whisky. And with the success of Glengoyne and Tamdhu and now Rosebank, we've just opened one up in India. So we're on the foothills of the Himalayas, Uttar Pradesh, making Scottish style whisky for the Indian blending market. So that is up and running, by the way. And we're building, along with the Isla boys, Lagan Bay, opposite the airport in Isla.
Okay, wow.
So it's quite a big story, Ian McLeod. We're about to open Edinburgh Gin. If you ever come to Edinburgh and you know the Waverley station where the railway station is, and you look up at the castle, it'll just be behind you, with a lovely rooftop bar overlooking the city, and underneath will be the gin stills as well. So that's a huge capital project, along with Isla and with India and with Rosebank. So we're looking forward to maybe calming things down and just getting some great whiskies out and get them poured.
Some great whiskey, some great gins, but especially also the lowland as a region, back from a long lost past. Because everybody was talking about Islay and the space side, but Lowlands was like, well, we've got a region called Lowlands.
I think unfortunately, because of the bold flavours of some of the other regions, it became the unsexy one. It was the one that people didn't really look towards. And it's amazing, Nick previously had a lot of involvement with Glasgow, and we would reference it being a whisky region. I went and it was very important to recognise that history, but they had to fight for it. But the reference was essentially 3 whisky distilleries. To be a whisky region, you had to have 3 distilleries, and the benchmark was actually the Lowlands, because that's essentially what it was. So luckily now we've Lowlands rich in history, but now it's looking super healthy. We're way into double figures now, so spanning from all the way, as you said, going down towards the borders, all the way up to St Andrews. I went and back to Lindors. And
I think some people get confused that. You just said 5 in the Lowlands.
Yeah.
Are you having a laugh?
Yeah.
But
because everybody has a line from Glasgow to Edinburgh and everything below, but it's actually a little bit.
I would say the joys of when you're doing a podcast or doing a dinner like this, you tend to get lost in Google, find all the things. So when you're typing in dates like 1772 and say, that's when oxygen was officially recorded. I'm like, right, that's a bit weird, okay? That's something we take for granted. But we were talking about the Wash Act, essentially saying the Highland Lowland line, probably from a tax purpose more than anything else, but that was about 1784. So we're going back quite a time, but again, and then seeing how that's developed from there. So,
and even then, I feel like the lines are blurred, right? I mean, Loch Lomond and Littlemill were sister distilleries, and I feel like if you threw a stone from Littlemill, you could probably just about hit Loch Lomond. And yes, Littlemill was a lowland distillery. Loch Lomond is technically a Highland distillery. Now, neither of those things quite tell you the whole story, because you call Loch Lomond a Highland distillery, but yet it can produce a whole spectrum of flavours. That's part of the magic of it. Equally, Littlemill, I think I'm right in saying, was using a Highland source of wood sauce. It could produce 3 very different styles, which at the time was unusual. So you asked for geekery, and I'm on the roll now.
That's right, because we grown up with Scotland regions. We're talking about Diageo with their classic malts. So it was very, very distinctive. You got your Lowland, it was floral. You got your Speyside, a little bit more bold. You got your Islays. You got the smokiness. It was very educational for us to learn about all the different styles. But actually, all these regions are blend into each other, because you've got pure peaty whiskies from Lowlands. You got your Speysides that are very, very peaty. You got your floral and light styles from way up in the Highlands, like Glenmorangie, for example. So there is not a very thing about the region that you could put a stamp on it.
I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think regionality really came in from the blenders. That wasn't a thing until 1988, as you mentioned, the classic malts. But before that, regionality was not for the public. Regionality was within offices of the blenders who wanted to make it simple. We'll have a heavy whiskey from there, a smoky from there, and some light from there. That'll be Lowlands, that's Islay, that's Highland. It's just a way of categorising flavours, and they did it by regions. That wasn't really meant for the general public, I don't think.
No, I don't.
And then it just spilled out over the Classic 6 when it came to 1988, and it just caught hold. But regionality is a...
Regionality isn't that about... You're talking about Littlemill and Rosebank being sister distilleries, stone's throw away, but still similar. and so different.
Yeah, but I also think as well, we're speaking about I wouldn't say the regionality thing, but looking at that in a timeline with the growth of single malts and the consumers, I think, as we mentioned, the classic malts, there was a level of a simple communication to help consumers. Now you look at some of the whiskey geeks, myself and Gordon are lucky enough to travel across Europe, and it's amazing not to just to see people's collections, but their knowledge of our brands. There's nothing better when somebody comes up and tells you a lot about your brand. You're like, whether it be good, bad or indifferent, I went back, just nice to hear that information. They're really invested in it. And I don't think you'd have probably got that, probably early 80s, mid 80s, but now the whiskey consumer and whiskey fan is they're so well educated in what they're looking for, and especially when it comes to flavour. There are these crossovers, so I don't think you can really speak about regionality as such.
No.
But we want to respect the history of it and what it's played as well, of course.
And new stories, new myths every single day. So even when people think they are misinformed, we get a new story. And that makes whiskey even better. The stories, the people behind it, the liquid,
I love a good story.
everything.
I love a good story. I've got a small story. I can do this in 30 seconds. Just looking at the history of Rosebank.
Oh, my battery's gone flat. No.
There's a joke there, but I'm not going to get into back.
No, you can do that. It's Dutch, so you can just swear words. We can take it out.
Just to say, but you look at some of the interesting characters that were in and around Rosebank around the 1870s, doing my little research, and there's a blue plaque just round the corner from the distillery that Alfred Nobel lived there.
Right, okay.
And I thought, right, well, what? The chap that has got the Nobel Peace Prize and sort of perfected dynamite lived just round the corner from Rosebank.
Yeah.
Yes, the blue plaque's still there. So I don't know if...
So is Rosebank an explosive whiskey then?
Well, I don't... He may have walked in and spoke to the owner and said, my God, this is absolute dynamite. Well, there's a good name for my invention. I've got no idea.
That's a sub-brand. Yeah, that's an indie bottle.
Is that right?
Yeah, copyright.
But these are the kind of stories, I was not expecting Alfred Nobel to pop up in the story there of Rosebank. It might not again, but I like it. So that's
absolutely
one of these nice stories.
Well, shall we keep on building stories from here with everybody else and have a good dram and having a great dinner? Because if I had to get in my spandex kilt, it will take some time. So
One last question.
Yep.
One last question. And I'd like to put it to all of you. Do you think there should be a Lowland Whisky Festival?
I'm going to let Alan come with one.
How many distilleries are there now?
So I can say this obviously completely unbiased, but first of all, when you're from the west coast of Scotland, you realise there is a slight east coast west coast rivalry. So the first question is, where do you hold it? So that's an argument for way above our.
The easiest thing is to fly into Glasgow or into Edinburgh anyway.
And do people regard that as a central belt, or would you want it further south in the heart of the lowlands? Then you're kind of really overlooking some of these, as I said, these distilleries are up close to 5. So I'll leave that question for somebody else. But it's a good one.
To answer that question, yes, we need a Lowland whiskey festival.
We always need festivals.
Where?
I'm
not. That's not up to me.
Yeah.
Maybe the Netherlands. That'll take the argument out of Scotland.
That is very much the Lowlands.
Yeah, for sure.
Just very much the Lowlands here. So, actually, we're recording it. You're having dry feet now. We're just above sea level. I live in The Hague. That's about 10 meters under sea level.
Okay.
So,
no, I'll be there at the end of this year. I'm looking forward to it.
No,
so the Lowland Festival in the Low Countries.
That sounds good.
That's it.
Excellent.
I've got it.
Oh, good idea, guys. Well, thank you very much for having me, and cheers to that.
Thank you guys. Well, cheers. And time to go drink some very good whiskey. And bye.
The Littlemill to Rosebank.
This is Rosebank.
Dit was Drop or Dram. Vergeet niet om je te abonneren op onze podcast of kijk op onze website www.dropordram.nl. Tot de volgende keer.